Welcome and get ready for some dotting fun. This is Jackie with the Studio for Art and Craft here in Cobleskill, New York. And today I'm going to walk you through one of our most popular dotting designs. This is a holiday tree that we do, and I'm showing you a photo of a finished plate because I don't have a plate with me. But I'm going to show you what comes in the kit and walk you step by step through creating it. So in your kit, you'll have a photo of the finished plate. You'll also have, a plate. And the plate will have a base coat on it, just like this one. You're also going to get a template that will look like this. And you'll get some tracing paper. Woo, excitement, excitement. You'll have colors. And you'll have a dotting tool that I'll show you how to use. You'll notice that the dotting tool has the largest tip right here, and then they get successively smaller until you get over here to number 1. Each one is numbered as well. And then you'll have a red marker that you'll also a Sharpie that you'll return. And then you'll also have a paper towel that you'll want to have slightly damp to use to clean your dotting tool with. You'll also need a pen from home, by the way. And then I'm also going to put in your kit these 3 guides that will help you through the project. So to start with, the first thing you're going to do, I'm going to take the plate away for a minute, and you're going to take your template and your tissue paper and your trusty exciting pen, and you're just going to trace. Now, you'll notice on the template, I think you can see this through, I have a little outline of a triangle shape. Do not trace that. Only trace the circles and the squiggles. How's that for a good way to phrase it? All right, so you're just going to go over all of these. All right. I'm working on my banding wheel, which turns out not to be the most brilliant idea because it has lines on it, so it's making me skip a little bit, but I've done this plate obviously plenty of times, so I know that it doesn't really matter that I'm not exactly copying the lines and the circles. I know that it's helpful to have that triangle shape on here because I know I can use it to make, to go, to keep my basic shape. I ideally would like my tree to look like a tree. I know, picky, aren't I? But I'm going to do this, so like that, it didn't matter to me that that's off a little bit. First of all, I can always fix it later at any one of a number of steps, and I won't make this mistake again of tracing on top of a banding wheel that has lines that go in another direction. Okay, so that's ultimately what we wanted. We want something that looks like this. I'm going to make sure you guys can see that okay. I think you can. I'll lift it up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, you can see that. Okay, so that's what you've got. Then you're going to take your plate, okay, and you're going to position your tree on your plate. I tend to position it something brilliantly like in the middle, okay? And then you're going to take your red pen and you're going to go over all these lines with your red marker, because when you do that, so you don't have to watch me trace again, you're going to get something that looks like this. I already did that, okay? So you can see this is what it's going to look like when you go over the red. The red will fire out, which is why it's important that you just use the red Sharpie and not something else. Make sure you put the red Sharpie back in your kit when you're done. And return it back to us. But please don't use anything else. If you have a question, give us a call. So now we're going to start on our design, and the first guide, if you want, it has a little number 1 on it, is you can use that to take you through it. We're going to start on our dotting tool with our largest dot, and we're going to start with our green color. All right, and we're going to basically use the guide, and to put on our dot. So I'm going to put one right in the middle here. Now, when you want to make a dot bigger, you don't want to mess with the edges. You want to just keep tapping lightly on the center of your dot, so more paint will fall off your dotting tool onto the plate. But in order to kind of keep the round shape, you want to be careful not to mess with the edges. Okay, let the paint fall right in the middle and spread out evenly. The other thing I want to show you, okay, or talk you through, is how you get on these squiggles, how you get the impact of the different size dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start basically with the number 4 tip, okay, I'm going to use, I'm going to do, say, this one to start with. And the thing that's key here is I'm not going to start at the end. I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to start, I want to start on a high point, I'll call it. So right here, and then I'm just going to follow the line, making smaller and smaller dots, or with the same tip. Now that one, you'll notice that I ran out. So then what I'm going to do is if I ran out, I'm not going to dip the same one. What did I do? I hit my red, didn't I? Okay, no big deal. I don't want to use the same tip down here because it'll make the dots too big. So I'm actually going to jump all the way down to tip number 1 just to finish that one off, because I know 1 is the smallest. It turned out to be perfect for this. But even so, even if this one was too small, it's always better to be too small than too large. You can always add to it. You can't take it away. So if you'll remember, in this direction, I started with number 4. I'm going to turn my plate because I'm very left-handed, and if I try to go across a plate, I'll make a terrible mess. So now I'm going to use tip 3 on this side, okay, and continue doing the same thing. Just dip, dot, 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 till I get to the end of my... And that's basically what you're going to do on all of these squiggles, okay, is you're going to start in the middle, and on some of them, you're going to make them much larger. I'm just going to show you with the guide again. So we just did this one, where I started about here, and then we came down. So you'll notice on the guide, they're much closer. You can make them close if you want to, but you'll also notice some of them are much larger. So I started with number 4 on this one. So I might start with number 5 or even number 6 on some of them. But you can use your guide to get a sense of how you want to vary the large size that you start with. And I'm going to talk you through it now, but just to give you an idea. And sometimes you'll start them smaller. So let me show you that one, in fact. That one is going to be this one. So I'm going to jump all the way up to number 6 so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to start here in the middle. I feel like I got enough on there. Yeah. And then I'm going to come down. So this one's going to have a different look. Now, if I start, where am I just getting this into my red? What a slob I am today. My goodness. Sorry about that. I have to pay attention. So if I had 6 here, you know that when I come on this side of it, I'm going to jump down to number 5. Okay. I see what I'm doing. I have to do it in this way. Okay. So all right, so you got the idea of that. So I'm going to just speed through this so I can take you on to the next thing that we're going to do. So you can either ignore me for a little bit if that makes you happy. I know some people that would make them exceedingly happy. Oh, here's another cool thing you can do. I'm just going to finish this one up. Boom, boom, boom. Don't worry if you go, by the way, like past the squiggle, the red line or whatever, you end up with yours being a little longer, or you're not exactly on the mark. It really doesn't matter. Some of these, what you can do is they actually, they're very long, and that's kind of fun to have some fun with that. But let me just see. So for this one, for example, I might start here and go this way. And then on this one, on this side, then this side will be longer. So the point I'm making is they don't all have to be in the middle, okay? They can be off center. And in fact, that kind of looks good to do some of each. All right, so I'm going to do some big, some small. Remembering that if I run out, I pick a smaller tip. I know this is not exciting to watch, but hopefully you guys can go, I got it, and, you know, pause me if you must. Okay. Now, what happens, I wanted to show, so what happens if you do it, you start doing it, and then you kind of go, oh no, there's no way I'm going to get all the way to the end of that. What you can do is start over here. So start, like, let's just say here with a slightly larger tip and work your way back down, okay? So you can redo it, and you can have more than one large point. So this one goes down from here and down from here, and then I made another largish one here. So you can vary it. There's no one right or wrong way to do it. I just want to give you some ideas that you can use. And you'll notice that when you do this over the red, that you're going to get, you're gonna maybe, you know, flip out a little bit because you're like, my glaze has red in it, and I'm telling you it's okay. It'll go away when it gets fired, so don't worry about that part of it. Sometimes down here, you could, if you're just doing a small one, you may just want to do all small in one line. You don't have to do them all with this approach where you start in one place and go down on each side. You can't, for the smaller ones, you can do it, you know, you can just do it in one direction. Most of them I do like this, but you don't have to, is all I'm trying to say. I just want you to have some fun with it. Have fun. I love, 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 love this design. All right, this is me trying to go quickly. So do as I say, not as I do, because when I go quickly, like, who knows what kind of result I'm going to get. Okay. So once we've got our green center and all of our other greens, I'm also going to have you use the gold color to start making some swirls, okay? I mean, yeah, I guess that's what I'll call it. I'm going to call it a swirl. I'll show you the picture. It's brown on here, but this kind of little design. So again, you can use that. What I typically do is you can use different size tips for this, but I'm going to start with tip number 3 to make sure you can see it nice and clearly. I'm going to get a good amount of glaze on there, and the way that I make that little design is I'm going to put it here where I want the head to meet, and then I'm really not even touching the plate with my tool. I just kind of let the paint fall off, and then I drag it up here. It's the best way I can describe it. You can certainly practice this on something else. So, for example, I want to put one in here. I'm actually going to go down to tip number 2, because I can always add more, but I can't add less. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it drip down, okay? And when I've got a puddle, I'm going to drag that up there. Do they all have to look the same? No, they do not. So I'm going to do a bunch of them. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few little ones up here. I'm still going to use tip 2. Okay. I'm going around. There is a little bit of a dot there because I'm going to want to add in a ball in a little bit. So I'm just making sure I leave space for that. But right now I'm just going to go around here. When I want a large one, I kind of go up to tip 3. And if I want a small one, I go to tip 2. So I'm going to do a tip 3 over here. And then I'm actually going to do a tip 2 over here to make sure I have enough room. Now, in fact, I did have plenty of room. So if I wanted to, I could come back and make the head a little bit larger on this. I'm just showing you I'm doing that so that you feel confident that you can make those kinds of edits too if you wanted to. So I'm now going to go around quietly and finish up all of my little drags, okay? Remember, you can always go lightly and add more if you need to. The main thing that you want to remember when you're doing these is that you want to make sure you don't mess up the, that's nice. You don't mess with the overall shape of the triangle. I mean, I don't want you to put the triangle on there when you trace it just because you're not going to use it. You're not going over it exactly, so, you know, why do that? But it is important to know that when that it has that basic, tree shape, etc. So anyway, this is, I'm just about done with this. I'm just going to put a few more in here with number 2. So I mostly use my number 2 and my number 3 tips on these. I'm just going to do this do it down along in here. And then that is my shape. I'm done with guide number 1, okay? So now we're going to do red. Okay, we're going to use the red now. And we're going to go first, and we're going to put red dots on the red dots on the remaining ones. So again, keeping in mind that you can always add more, you can't add less. I'm going to start on my larger ones with my number 7 instead of my number 8 tip, because I don't want to add too much. And if I need it to be bigger, I can just go in and redip and splap right in the middle, okay? That's the safest thing to do, is to start smaller, and if you need more, do it again. So for example, I'm going to do this one because I just already put my number 7 tip in there. But I'm going to jump down to even my number 6 tip. I'm going to go to my number 5 tip just to be safe on this one, especially because red is a somewhat of what we call a thinner color. It's more viscous. It's got flows more than some other colors. And so I really don't want it to spread into any of the other things that I've done. So rather than take that risk, I'd rather have a smaller tip. And like right now, I'm doing this one with a 6, but I have plenty of room. So I went and redipped, and I'm just tapping on it until it gets a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's what I've got in terms of, whoops. I'm going to do this little one I missed up here. Okay. Just holding it down there even. So, okay, those are all of the dots that were there. So now what I'm going to do is use even a smaller tip. I'm going to use my number 2. I might use some 3 2s and 1s. And I'm going to show you the photo, not the photo, the picture, the schematic that I've drawn. All right. And you'll notice that we have lots of little red dots kind of quote unquote all over the place. This is somewhat random. So if there's places where you have room, let's just say for a number 3, and that's going to be for me like down here, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to randomly, not in a row, that's what random is. I'm just going to add some other dots, okay, of the red dots in different places. And you're going to do it all over so they don't look like you did them in a row. So if I put a 3 there, I'm going to come over here and do other colors. I guess that makes sense. So again, all I'm going to do is dot with my red, quote unquote, all over the place. So what I'm really doing mostly is using number 3 in big places and then using it up. You know, the fact that every time I dot, the dots are a little bit smaller. And better to go all over the place first and not focus too much on any one area, because then you'll get overall the best effect. And then you can decide where you need more. Really, once you've done a lot of your large dots, you'll be able to decide where you might need some more dots. So like I'll look here and I'll say, okay, well, I didn't really do too much over here, did I? So let me add a few in there. And then I might use this. Now, once I have filled up a lot of the big spaces, I'm actually going to go down to my number 2, all right, so that I'm starting with smaller dots to begin with, because I don't want to mess up my shape by having these big old dots. So now I can see I need a couple more dots over here to try to retain my shape of my triangle. Whoops, did not leave a dot. All right, that's great. That's what I wanted. Can always come back and add a bigger dot if I feel that I need one to anchor it. Okay. Now, the other thing then, I know I can't stop. That's not good. Okay, the last thing we're going to do on this section then is we're going to actually add dots on top of our green. Again, we're going to add the red dots. And basically what I'm doing is I'm starting on the big one, just like before, and I'm going to do a smaller. So if I'll show that to you, but I don't do every single one. I usually do a middle one and then 2 or 3 or even up to 4 on each side. There's nothing magical about it. I'll talk you through the first few that I'm going to do. But if I'm going to start with something like this where I have a large dot, again, you know me, I always say start small. You can always add bigger. I'm actually going to start with number 2. All right, and I'm going to put a dot here. And then what I do is I put a dot on either side because I kind of want them to be roughly the same size. The most important thing is I don't want these dots to be bigger than the dots underneath. Okay, this is just for emphasis. So I might do this one. And there's also nothing wrong then. And you notice I'm actually not focusing, I'm centering them. And that's okay. So if I, like on this one, if I was going to do this one over here, I might actually go down to number 1 because I just don't want it to be that big. Because if I want to go a little bit further. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to do a lot of number 1 now, okay? And I'm going to double dot a number of these. And I'm going to usually do them in odd numbers. So I did this one 3. I'm going to do that one 3. And I'm just going to finish doing this. And hopefully you're going to do the same. This one's a 5. You really need me to count for you, don't you? It's like, wow, Jackie, that's brilliant. Okay. I'm doing these all with tip number 1, by the way, because as I mentioned, red moves a lot. So I don't necessarily want them to be too big. And it looks to me like tip number 1 is going to get me what I want in most cases. So I'm emphasizing that. You guys probably have a placemat that you have under yours so you can move your plate. It's really always a good idea to turn your plate so you're always dotting from your side of strength. You know, people who've done designs with me before have heard me say this, oh, numerous times. Okay. And again, I don't do all of them, but I do most of them. All right. Yes, Jackie, I get it. Okay. So really all we're going to do next on this is we're going to do a little bit, really don't do too much here. I'm just going to triple dot a few of them. My red ones, I'm going to put a dot of white on, I guess, actually. I shouldn't say that. I am still double dotting. So on those big, juicy red ones, which are probably still a little bit wet, so, and the reason I'm mentioning that is because I deal with that a certain way. I'm going to go with tip number 5 and show you what I do here. But I'm going to go into this here, and I don't actually do these in the middle, actually. And what you want to do when you're working with wet glaze is you just want to drip it on there. So can you see me doing that? I'm not really pushing it. I'm almost letting the dot pull the white on to it. I'm barely touching it and holding it down long enough for the red to pull the white. And one thing I forgot to do, so I'm going to do it now, you can do it now too, is go back to the red and put a red in the center of this green. That one's pretty dry, so I can actually touch it if I want to. And now I'm going to come back and work on my other, putting the white on the other reds. And I do this on just about all of them. I tend to, if you want to have a direction, I tend to put these up in the top half of these. And these are just those original big dots, not every single dot that you did. I think that makes sense to you, right? Okay. So I think that's about it. Just one more, this guy. All right. And then once we've done that, I'm actually just going to take a tiny dot of green and put that on top of the white. Some of this doesn't look highly visible right now because the green is, but it will work once it gets fired. The other thing actually I meant to do, I keep doing this, sorry about that, is I'm going to go back and put a drop of white, not a drop, I'm going to use like tip number 3 and put a little bit of white on top of this red. And then I'm going to go back with my tip number 1 and put the green on top of that. Just a little dot. Okay, oops, I see one more I missed. So now I am done with that part. And now I'm going to do, so I'm done with all my little pictures, okay? Now what I want to do is add my stars and my snow. And I point that out because you can, like I like to say, you can do whatever you want with this. So I'm going to do some of my stars. Anything like this that's a mess, you can just leave it till the end. When you bring it back to be fired, you can point out anything like this and we can fix it. If you have paint someplace where you don't want it, it's best to just take the back, maybe like a toothpick or something. Well, that was a mess. That was me going for my toothpick. So now I have to I'm just going to use the edge of this paintbrush to show you what I'm doing. Let me see if I can find something. If I made some dots that are sticking together. Okay, here's a couple. So I'm just going to make a fine line between the two. Just scrape it ever so lightly. You do not want to scrape that base coat away because I won't be able to see that. As soon as you can see that there's some air between them, and you want to do this when your dots are completely dry. It just does not work as well. And I'm showing you now because these dots are wet and you can see how it really gouges it. So wait till it's completely dry, have a little bit of patience, and then go ahead and make that, clean it up a little bit. But stuff like this, I can probably clean it up easier in the studio for you. All right, we're just going to use tip number 1. And when I make the stars, what I do is I start in the middle. All right, let me see if one's a little small for this. I'm just changing my mind. It's my prerogative. Dot, and then I'm going to do 4 up, 2, 3, 4. And here's and then when I go down, that one I'm going to do with tip number 1 because I don't want my next dot to be that big. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do that to the west with tip 1, 2, 3, 4. And to the east, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what I'm going to do is also using tip 1 is I'm just going to put 1, 2 on each side. Now that is what I like to call the Jackie version of an adorable star. You can do what, I would say this, right? You can do whatever you want. I tend to put 3 stars, so I start with number 2. I tend to not want them to be, the same height. And now these two I'm making the same size, but you don't have to do yours the same size. You can do other ones that are smaller. I think on the picture that you'll have in your kit, you will see that I have smaller ones. But I actually think I'm only going to do 2 on this one anyway, just because of the way that I have it spaced and all. And now I'm really just going to take my tips, and I'm going to do one with a tip 3 to show you that. And I'm just going to do, something brilliant like this. Okay, now I'm going to go up to tip 4. I'm going to go up to tip 5. Wow, I'm just the bravest of people. But I'm showing you this because I want you to see what the different tips look like. All right. I tend not to put any underneath the tree just because if it's supposed to look like snow, it probably doesn't snow under a tree. But you guys do whatever you'd like. But essentially, this is the design, so I'm kind of liking tip 5 as a starting point. And that's basically all there is to it. You can dude it up more if you'd like, or leave it as is. Let the whole thing dry. It'll take quite a bit of time for those dots inside to dry. Try not to put anything else on top of it, and bring it on back, and we'll get it fired for you. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.